Perfect Balance Healthcare presents Lick, Stick, and More with your host, Dr. Nandita Koodie. Join me to explore the minds of thought leaders as they share golden nuggets on the impact of faith integration in practice, professional development tips, and innovative solutions to bring you beyond ordinary healthcare. Welcome on in for another episode with me, your host, Dr. Nandita Koodie. I have with me today a great source of aspiration, inspiration in our industry, Kim Newlove. She is a pharmacist out of Ohio, voice actress, podcast host, wife, mother of two, and a great volunteer in her community. Please allow me to welcome Kim. Thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, Nandita. It's good to see you.
Yeah, so I just wanted to first get some clarity around exactly what is voice acting for those who might not have heard of it before.
Good question. Voice acting can mean a number of things. It's basically just using your voice to tell somebody how to feel about something, whether it's a cartoon and it's for kids to teach them something or to entertain them. I don't do animation. That's probably a terrible place for me to start. Or audiobooks, getting the emotional point, the author's intention through to the listener so that even if it's something informational like this book that I'm narrating right now, Perimenopause, The Savvy Sister's Guide to Hormone Harmony, I'm giving the information, but I'm also telling people how to feel about it using my voice. So it's all about using your voice to communicate.
I love that. And I know that you have your own thoughts about pharmacists and their voice. Can you share a little bit about your beliefs and your opinions on pharmacists and the utilization of our voice?
Sure. I think everybody's voice is important. We all take for granted something that's literally right under our noses, our mouth, right? And I am really big about inspiring people to use their voices because I have come to realize that I can monetize mine. And if I can monetize my voice, then others can too. And I like to inspire people through my podcast to use their voices in whatever way that they have a passion or a gift or have been blessed to use it. That is what I want people to be inspired to do. And my guests use their voices to advocate for something, educate in some way, or entertain so that my listeners are inspired to use their voices too.
That's so true. I know the Bible says that out of the overflow of the heart, the mouth speaks. And so it's so important to make sure that what we're doing, how we're acting, the way that we think is all in alignment, with His word, so that what we're putting out there into the interwebs and into the universe is positive and uplifting to others and can serve as a source of inspiration as you do. So that's awesome to hear that you're doing that. And I just wanted to kind of get some context around this. Like, where were you before you were doing this, and what needed to change? What was it that was going on that really catalyzed your exploration into this space?
So my clinical career has been over the past, I guess you could say, 20 plus years. I graduated from the University of Toledo College of Pharmacy in 2001 with my bachelor's degree, never got a PharmD. And I basically went to work right away in a hospital, small community hospital. Can't remember how many beds, but I know pharmacists love to hear how many beds because we all compare. And after that, I realized that the schedule was not right for my family situation. I was a newlywed. I got married at 22 and I worked for about, I want to say a little over 6 months, started looking for something else, had done a rotation with Walgreens, found that Walgreens would give me the consistent schedule that I was working or wanting to work. And I was working at that point, 2 firsts and 2/3 at a community hospital. I wanted something consistent. They said, we can give you 7 on, 7 off at midnights at Walgreens. I took it at a 24-hour store. And I worked my way out of the hospital and into Walgreens over the course of about 5 months. So I was still working part-time for a little bit for the hospital and full-time for Walgreens. Worked full-time for Walgreens for 9 years. Then not full-time, sorry. And anyways, I worked full-time for 1 year at Walgreens, 8 years part-time. And then I stopped. I got to a point where it was not healthy for me to stay anymore. So I moved on and I just became a stay-at-home mom for a while, volunteered in my community. That's where the volunteer part of my intro comes. And then I worked a little bit at a compounding pharmacy, actually, while I was still at Walgreens. And I ended up in behavioral health a few years after I left Walgreens. Just for a year, I was helping somebody that I volunteered with who needed a floater pharmacist or a relief pharmacist on weekends. And it was when I left behavioral health that I was thinking, what do I do next? Mm-hmm. And you asked about the catalyst for that. I didn't want to become a voice actress. I didn't know. I just call it voice actor. I think it's like a gender neutral term. I really wanted to narrate pharmacy continuing education journals. Why would I want to do that? Well, I have this nonverbal son with autism. And I was thinking, well, he's nonverbal. He can't read, write, or speak. And I have really realized how powerful it is to have a voice. And he loves it when I read to him. There was a lot of joy. So I found joy in actually reading to him and spending that time with him. And I thought, well, can I do something with my background as a pharmacist and my speaking voice? And that's where not the company was born so much as the idea for using my background and my speaking voice. It was over time that I decided there's got to be a name for this thing that I'm doing. And I went to a local studio to figure out how to record, edit, and produce my voice so that I can just, email somebody an MP3 file. And when I was there, it was really that recording engineer at my local studio that said, this is called voiceover and you need to get training. And I said, all I want to do is just narrate these journals. I don't want to do anything fancy. I don't want to do commercials. And he said, still, you need to have an entry point. You need to figure it out. I'm just an engineer. And I said, okay, well, thank you. That is how I got my entry point. I started off with one idea and I did learn how to record, edit, and produce my voice. I pitched my idea to several people. Nobody wanted to pay for me to narrate pharmacy continuing education journals into some sort of an audio format. So I pivoted because I did learn how to record, edit, and produce my voice. I had never heard of a podcast by that time. And I had this company name that I fell in love with, the Pharmacist voice, because I wanted to use my voice to monetize my knowledge as a pharmacist. And I just thought it was a natural name. And I never meant to be the pharmacist's voice for the whole entire profession. I just want to clear that up. I do not claim to be the voice of the whole profession. But the catalyst really was me trying to find something kind of different to do because I did not want to go back to community, didn't necessarily want to go back to hospitals because by the time 2016 rolled around, it was a lot harder to find a job as a BS Pharm, which is what I have. And it's not that I have any less value. Anybody out there who's a BS Pharm, you still have plenty of value. It's just for whatever reason, the entry point for some jobs seems to be the PharmD. So I also had significant childcare issues, and I decided I need to put family first. And it's really hard to find affordable, reliable, skilled care for an older person with autism. I mean, that was really the catalyst, wanting to be there for my family, using my background as a pharmacist and my speaking voice and trying to figure it out. That's where it started.
Well, Kim, I think that's where you and I connected a couple years back, because we were kind of both in that pivot point where it's like, okay, we found something we're passionate about. We just need to figure out how we're packaging this or how we're positioning this to where it's something that we can do. It's attractive that it's remote. It's attractive that it's something that we created that didn't exist. Instead of having to try to fit into somebody's box, why not just create what we're passionate about and pursue that in a way that it meets an unmet need in the industry, right? And trying to figure out where that is, where it's attractive. And not monetizing it for a sense of, okay, we need to make as much money as we can, but monetizing it for the sense of how can I afford to do this, right? And it not be something that it's just happening once a month, right? How can I afford to do this sustainably so that I can better serve my community, because I want to continue to do what I'm doing on the volunteer front and to be able to afford to do that. And I think that to me was so inspirational as I connected with you and I was able to relate to you going through this and going through the challenges at the height of the pandemic and trying to really figure out what are the tools and resources that we can use to effectively expose what we're doing in the industry. And so I think that it's great that you fell upon podcasting without having known what it was prior, myself as well. Podcasting, when I met you, was not on my agenda. I would be lying if I didn't say that you were a source of inspiration for me to show me that it is possible to do this as a pharmacist and juggling motherhood and everything else. So I wanted to thank you for that source of
You're welcome. That's so sweet.
No, I really genuinely mean that. And I appreciate it because I'm constantly being provided with messages from viewers thanking me for sharing. And that all goes back to the investment that you made in giving me helpful tips and tricks getting into this. So while I'm on that subject, I did want to ask you, what are your top 3 helpful tips and tricks for people getting into the podcasting space?
I would say do your research and understand what you want out of it. So like, when you look in the mirror, like, what do I want out of this? And then you got to think like outwardly, what do I want people to get out of this? So what do I want out of it? What do they want out of it? And then also learn your audio engineering, because unless you hire somebody, which can get expensive, not just for the editing, but to record it and produce it. I mean, it's really quite a bit. I had already learned how to record, edit, and produce audio as part of my voiceover training. I knew how to do all that before I came to podcasting. I met Dr. Erin L. Albert at a conference, and she said, "Oh, you know how to do all that? You should really be podcasting." And so the 2 things that I already mentioned, plus listen to the School of Podcasting, that is how I learned how to do quite a bit of stuff, not the audio engineering, but just like the nerding out part, like what's in it for me, what's in it for them. And what I came up with was solid, and it actually has not changed. I'm kind of surprised, but also not surprised. I think when you put enough thought into it, it sticks.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that it's so cool that you're able to pair building up this skill because you really recognize, hey, I don't have what I need to really accomplish what I'd like to. What is it that I need to do to get where I want to be, to do what I want to do? I think that process right there is a piece where people get stuck. And that's where I highly recommend getting in with a business coach or finding someone who's doing this in a leadership role in whatever industry you're looking to get into, and lean into them. You'd be so surprised what the power of networking can do and how open people are to helping others and turning around and giving back, right? How many times have you reached out to somebody who you thought was completely unattainable and they turned around and supported you?
More than once.
Yeah, more than we even realize. Sometimes we just do it and it happens. And after the fact, we think about it and we're like, wow, that was really cool and useful, So my hat goes off to you for the consistency that you've put in over the years. I myself have not been consistent in this space. I will be the first to admit that. Life happens. I give myself grace there, and I want to make sure that what I'm putting out there is quality and not quantity. And so I think that's something else to consider as people get into this is don't feel like, the world is going to come crumbling down if you fell out of your regular routine for podcasting. What's important is showing up and giving some quality back to whatever industry you're playing in. Now, without giving away any secret sauce here, Kim, what are you working on right now?
I was just doing the pickups for this today, which means I recorded this whole entire audiobook for Perimenopause, The Savvy Sister's Guide to Hormone Harmony by Dr. Anna Garrett. And then I'm working on the podcast. I'm going to be working with a new audio engineer to learn a new platform for recording and editing projects to kind of level up my audio skills. And I've got so many things, Nandita.
I know. There's no way someone as driven and organized as you are is just working on one thing. We always got something cooking on the back burner that's a little bit longer time commitment or things that are just immediate that we're working on. But what's amazing to me is to watch you grow in this space, because where we were at, a couple of years ago, when I first met with you, it was a very different Kim. You were really just sort of exploring what was going to work and how you were going to apply yourself back then versus now it's like, no, I have paid clients that reach out to me for what I've positioned myself in the market, leveraging podcasting and leveraging these other tools to gain exposure about what I have to offer and how I can serve, and I think that's so amazing.
Right. And things happen when you put yourself out there. I don't know about you, but I've put myself out there as an audiobook narrator, somebody who does medical narration, e-learning, explainer videos, podcasting, and also, like putting yourself out there as being like a pharmacist who knows audio And being a woman, I have attracted women pharmacists who want to know certain things, people that want to do mic checks with me. I am starting a new service where I'm going to help women pharmacists that are going to be guests on podcasts who want to get the right mic and they want to make sure it's set up correctly. You can contact me. I gave away that time to find out what the pain points were and how long it takes to do the thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I found that, I haven't priced it yet, but it takes about 15 to 30 minutes, like 15 if you want a super quick mic check, 30 if you want me to record a little bit of our audio so you understand how you sound on somebody's podcast. That is valuable. And I think that people would pay for that now.
Absolutely.
And then other things, people want to learn how to start a podcast, especially women. Mm-hmm. And I think that might actually be kind of how we met.
It is. Exploring getting into podcasting. I was like, give me some advice as to what mic I'm picking. And you were just graciously giving that information. And then I realized after the fact, I said, Kim, you should probably package this because it's extremely valuable. And I know I'm not the only person trying to get into this space. So I'm glad that you're definitely doing that.
Yes. Yeah. I'm actually going to make a course. I have an online platform where I have online courses right now, and I'm going to be making a course that's just going to be a peek under the hood of my podcast. So you can just see what I do, what kind of mics do I use and how simple is it? Anyways, what's happened to you since you started your business in general? Yeah, did you only do the thing that you started off to do, or did it evolve into more?
This thing has converted like 8 times over the past, I don't know, since 2017, from even who I'm working with or what I'm doing when I'm working with them, or, how I expect like you said, what the end goal is of my work, that has all evolved over time quite a lot. I started off working direct to patient, doing patient care services, cash, because as pharmacists, we didn't understand the medical billing side of things or reimbursement side of things, or it's too complicated, or it's too much red tape, or we don't even know, we don't have provider status and this and that, all these excuses. So what it is that I need to do to get where I want to go to do what I want to do piece for me was trying to figure out medical billing and answer some of these unanswered questions that we have as pharmacists. And so what I came to find is, this is great information for me, and I'm able to create a role for myself, and I'm doing collaborative care, and I'm being able to now work on the reimbursement side of things. Oh, wait a second. Like you said, this is extremely valuable information. Like there's probably a whole line of pharmacists that are just like me that are looking to figure out how to work remotely from home, especially like you said, women who are moms, or they're juggling multiple jobs or different life challenges, and they're trying to figure out how can I provide and continue to work as a pharmacist at the same time and marry my skills with my passion. And so, it evolved to now, okay, well, let me work with other independent pharmacists who are looking to start their own consulting practice, right? And then it evolved, and I was like, I see this as being an empowerment tool for independent pharmacy owners. Let me work with independent pharmacy owners. And it's like, okay, well, there's so many players, and I'm working with independent pharmacy owners and independent physicians. And now all of a sudden, like you said, you just put yourself out there, and all of a sudden, now I'm working for a national independent pharmacy organization with members across the entire nation. Nice. Literally sharing a program that I created that did not exist, right? And learning from other people in the industry who are blazing this path, right? And growing with them to really empower pharmacists to be and do more, and being a source of inspiration. And that, to me, if you're looking at the other side of what I'm trying to get to, I've found an evolution now to where I've found my purpose with regard to how I can serve the Lord in edifying the body and uplifting them to serve others more efficiently and more effectively, and honestly, morally, in a more morally acceptable manner than what we were doing before in the community setting. And so really looking at servant leadership and how we can kind of implement biblical counseling in practice now has been my pivot as to what I'm doing now, and why I've gone silent with podcasting as I've tried to figure out what my application for my gifts are in the industry. And so now that I'm doing what I was doing before, building full time, remotely from home, I now have that freedom, that space has been created for me to kindle biblical counseling, the application of biblical counseling in the healthcare system. And so I'm working on writing a book for that, documenting my journey through the biblical counseling process, and being able to turn around and empower other pharmacists to get into that space and figure out how to point patients to Christ for healing where appropriate, knowing the difference between medical issues, spiritual issues, and really addressing religion as a social determinant of health. So I know that was a huge mouthful for the evolution of perfect balance healthcare. But yeah, like you said, it's definitely something where you explore it, you kind of turn the Rubik's Cube until it makes sense, for a long time. But it's only through trial and error and just getting into it and doing it, building the plane while you're flying it, that you're able to figure out these things and not just get stuck in getting ready to get ready and just, I need another certification or I need more training, but actually just starting to do it so you can see where the barriers are and develop solutions to continue to grow.
I like that you've pivoted, that I see that theme. You're talking about turning the Rubik's Cube. You're saying you did it 8 times or something, but I love that you're bringing you into the equation. And I know that Dr. Adam Martin, the Fit Pharmacist, talks a little bit about spirituality, and he brings that into his practice too, as very individual. And I just want to commend you for bringing a little bit of Nandita into your own company that is unique.
And honestly, yes, PBH is still functioning to still help to equip independent pharmacists to developing their passion practice that's faith-centered and figuring out what that looks like and how to pack it and kind of going through this process that we're talking about, that you and I went through, trying to figure out how to turn that Rubik's Cube and having someone to walk alongside you that might have gone through that, creating what doesn't exist process. And understanding the legal repercussions, right? Like some of the regulatory side of things is where a lot of the unknowns are, and billing and some of those things as well. So, but yeah, what's next? What's long-term goals? What's on the other side for you long-term?
Long-term, I want to continue to use my speaking voice, but I also want to use my voice in writing. One of the skills that I would like to also monetize is how to write show notes. Like, I not only want to show people how I do it, I want to either do it for other people or show them how to do it. And the reason that I say that is that there's a lot of Google juice or SEO that can be found in show notes or blog entries, however you want to say that. And some people that are podcasters don't take advantage of that. If you want to funnel people to your website, you can also use your podcast show notes. And a lot of times I see people just putting 2 sentences, like today's guest is Kim Newlove, the founder of the Pharmacist Voice. No Kim Newlove's website, if to learn more, go to my website and click on this. And, there's just so many things you can do. And I'm not an expert, but like you were saying about the building the plane while you're flying, I like to say it's building the parachute as you're falling, because I don't know, that's just another way to say it. I want to.
Well, that's what it feels like. That's definitely what it feels like.
Yeah, but I mean, there are people out there right now that will pay for knowledge that you have. I mean, you, Nandita, and me, Kim Newlove. It's amazing how people will just approach me like, hey, I know it doesn't on your business card, which I found one of these on the floor while I was cleaning up here, getting ready for this. It doesn't say that I write podcast show notes, but eventually that might be on there. And people all the time ask me to do things like mic checks or helping them start a podcast that is not on a business card. So think outside the box. I just want to inspire anybody. Hopefully that's not backwards on your screen.
Oh, no, we can see
mine.
It's
okay.
Good.
Yeah. But I mean, you can be, and if people want to be what they can see, hopefully they can see me loud and clear, if that makes any sense. And always pivoting. And like you said, turning the Rubik's Cube, finding something that works. And something that I want to say about monetizing, you were talking a little earlier about, getting the financial freedom to do this. I am a married woman. I'm married to a man. I have a traditional household like that, husband, 2 kids. But something that I want to bring up is that I have a story that needs to be told. And Tim Ulbricht's going to invite me to be on the Your Financial Pharmacist podcast to talk about this. Pharmacists have a glass ceiling. When I started having kids and I worked part-time, I said I worked part-time for 8 years at Walgreens. And during that time, me being the support person for my husband, he was able to 5x his income. And I'm not saying that everybody's married to a man and everybody has kids. Everybody's got a different story. But for anybody that sees me and says, oh, I'm like her, I'm telling you, I did things kind of a little different. I have a 19-year-old and a 17-year-old. And for a long time, I stayed at home. Yes, I know I could have gotten daycare. I know everybody's got their own formula, but they're going to get to hear when I'm on Your Financial Pharmacist what we did and what came out of it. And it's amazing. I am 43 years old. I own my own company. I can basically do whatever I want with it. I have very little overhead. And the company has doubled this year alone, doubled income. And it's going nowhere but up and diversifying and everything. I'm not trying to brag, but what's next for me is more services, more income, helping more people. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's what's really cool about your approach is you're not just saying, oh, I'm just going to serve everyone and do everything. You're taking a very specialized approach. And I think that that's where a lot of pharmacists get lost is they think that adding to their service mix randomly is going to increase their chances of getting more people that they can serve. But when you don't have a strategic targeted approach to a consistency among your services, you're not reaching anyone, really. And so that's really one of my goals for this year as I consult with different pharmacists, whether it be from what I'm doing with pharmacy development services or with Perfect Balance Healthcare, is to really inspire pharmacists to shift into an appointment-based model, shift into a very targeted approach with regard to who they serve and having alignment from their front end to the actual bench work to even the clinical services, all in alignment to serving an unmet need in their community. And I feel like you've definitely found that in, yes, you're adding new services, but they're all in alignment with regard to your voice and the impact that it can have with regard to media as well, and trying to figure out how can I get into the writing space and kind of apply my skills in different spaces. But it all has this continuum of a theme that's there throughout all the services. So I like that. And one of the things I wanted to gain from you is it takes someone who's organized to kind of figure that out.
I am a tactile person. I like, this is something you're going to laugh. I was working on my next podcast episode. These are all my podcast episodes. It's like 9 pages and I just have them all written out because staying organized saves time. And I am actually writing a podcast episode about being a generator versus a reactor. Some people generate stuff like, the morning show talk host that's on fire, on sugar, on caffeine. And some people are reactors. I am actually a reactor. I need something to react to. How does this relate to your question? Staying organized helps me react to my own cookie crumbs, if you know what I'm saying. Staying organized, having stuff in writing, it helps me react to that stuff and move forward and be the success that apparently I am today.
Well, let me take a shot at it and tell me, correct me if I'm wrong or expand upon it. But basically you're saying, hey, if I gave myself a task list, then it's something for me to react to in that I can actually go through these systematically and I can prioritize them, not necessarily by ease, but by importance and not get stuck on, well, I'm going to add something to my task list that I know I could do in the time I could write it just to make myself feel better. But giving you that actually elicit a reaction. One of the things that I've done is I've incentivized my tasks to make myself more likely to react to them positively.
Ooh, I want an example.
Okay. When I was in school and I was studying, the topics I really did not like, I would put a gummy bear on the end of each page. So I get a gummy bear if I study it. So really bad example, but just finding ways to incentivize and reward ourselves for actually finding progress and not getting overwhelmed by how big a task can be. But really, for me, the trick is putting it all on my calendar, because no matter what, a task takes time to accomplish. And so if I carve out the time for it, I'm more likely to, if I commit myself to my calendar, then I know that I'm going to accomplish things progressively over time. So for the people who are listening and they want to get in touch with you, where do we find you? How do we get in touch with you to find out all things voice acting and the pharmacist voice?
Connect with me on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, or YouTube. Go to thepharmacistvoice.com. That's pharmacist with an S. thepharmacistvoice.com, and click on any of the social media links. They're in the upper right-hand corner. You can listen to my medical narration demo. There's a podcast link to find the podcast. There's a store link if you want to find my online course, which is called Pronounce Drug Names Like a Pro. I teach voice actors and others how to pronounce drug names like a pro. It's pretty cool. And if anybody wants to get into voice acting, 2 resources that I have found that are fantastic are Introduction to Voiceover.com. I believe it's Rhonda Phillips' course. And rhondasvoice.com is her regular website for voiceover, rhondasvoice.com. And she actually has one of the best intro courses if anybody's interested in getting into voiceover. And Mike Lenz, who's a pharmacist, voice actor, and podcast host, sound like anybody, also teaches something. And I believe he's MikeLenzVoice.com, if I remember right. He's got an online course. So those two courses from Rhonda or Mike are really good for anybody looking to get into voiceover. And to connect with me, thepharmacistvoice.com, definitely number one.
Love it. Thank you so much for sharing with us. And I look forward to seeing you soon. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you. It's been my pleasure.
God bless. Thank you for listening to this episode of Lipstick and More. Subscribe and follow us on YouTube and all the social media sites at Perfect Balance Healthcare, or visit us anytime at pbh.life.